This video shows how Caleb, our genealogist, found Lala Montelibano'S father.
Jumping in kind of to what we've discovered about you. This was the DNA result that we got back, just the first cousin matches and second cousin matches. And so you had 7 of them that turned up. The very first one that turned up is actually your first cousin. This is Darcel Taylor. I believe you've seen her in one of your videos now.
Yes.
But at the time, we didn't know who she was, but we could tell from the DNA that she was a true first cousin. She matches your DNA by about 11%. And so she ended up being an important figure in helping us solve your case. The next group that we see in your results are your first cousins once removed. So these are the children of your cousins. And that kind of helps us triangulate a little bit in on who your family was. And then the last group that we see here are your second cousins. So down to the Erkenbrack family. So they share the same great grandparents as you. And what we kind of do is use these things to triangulate backwards to who you're related to. So we just need more data points to kind of zero in on where your family is located. So that's how we did that. So what I did next is I just kind of built up their family trees so that we could figure out how they're related to each other. So I put them on this tree. Each one of them individually, I kind of worked up their ancestry and figured out where they were related and how they fit together. So what you're looking at now is kind of the family tree of all of your cousins. So we know that you're on this tree somewhere. And so that's kind of where the project comes, is where do you fit into this puzzle that we've got on the screen here. So what you see here is your great-grandparents. You have 4 American great-grandparents at the top of the tree. And so all of your cousins converge back to the set of 4 great-grandparents. So that's your common point of relations there. And it's kind of important to remember that they're not just names on a family tree. They're actually real people. And these are the photographs of your 4 great-grandparents on your American side. They were born in the 1880s and the 1890s. Their parents had all immigrated to America from various places in Europe, including Wales, England, Ireland, and the Jersey Islands, which are just off of the coast of France, but they belong to the UK. And so they all made their way to the U.S. And they actually, for the most part, their parents took covered wagons and pulled by oxen across the United States and settled in the state of Utah along what is known as the Mormon Trail. And today that area is Salt Lake City, Utah. So that's where your great-grandparents all settled. What I did next is I kind of took another step further back on your family tree and included your great-great-grandparents. And what you see here is all of your more distant cousins that have been attached to the tree. So these are your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th cousins that we were able to place using their DNA on the tree. And you'll notice that what happens when we do that is there's kind of 2 separate trees that form. And what's causing that is that one tree, the one on the left and one tree on the right, belong to your grandparents. So one is your grandfather's family and one is your grandmother's family. And so what we're trying to do genealogically is figure out how these 2 families come together. And that's your grandparents. So this is the marriage that brings those 2 family trees together and identifies all of your various cousins. So you've got cousins on both sides of these unrelated trees. And the only way that's possible is through the marriage of your grandparents. So your grandparents are Vaughn Howard Davis and Shirley May Harding. So that's the couple that brings everybody together. And these are actually your grandparents. So this is Vaughn Howard Davis and Shirley May Harding. So Vaughn was born in 1919 in Clover, Utah, and he married Shirley in 1939. Pretty amazing to see your grandparents for the first time, right?
And my grandmother really looks like me.
Yeah.
Yep, she does. That was one of the things your family noted too.
Yeah, look at
Same
even the
haircut,
hair.
actually. Yeah.
Hair, like them. I'm so amazed.
Yeah,
by
so your
your
grandparents, they
by the
grew
Holy
up in rural Utah here in the 1940s, just west of Salt Lake City, in the shadow of the Onaki Mountains, which is kind of famous for its herd of wild horses. And according to the 1940 U.S. Census, your grandfather was a 20-year-old farm laborer working on his father-in-law's farm, so he was kind of doing farming.
Mm-hmm.
But by the 1950s, he had also become employed as a truck driver for the state of Utah. And since he only had cousin detections on your ancestry DNA results, we can only from this point know, or I guess I should say that your ancestry DNA results can only take us to your grandparents. They can't take us any further from a genetic standpoint. So at this point, we have to transition to the paper trail to figure out how you're related to the next generation. In other words, their sons. So the next step here in the research is to figure out who their sons are. That's kind of the key to figuring out where you fit into that puzzle. So we can kind of go through. Thankfully, the family posted some of their photos to Family Search, so I was able to pull down photos of each of their sons and figure out who they were. So we'll go through those now. This was the couple's very first son. His name was Garrett, and he was born in 1940. Their next two children were Howard and Kenneth. So Howard was born in 1942, and Kenneth was born in 1944. So that's your father there, Kenneth, as a little baby. Their next child was Lynn Ernest Davis. And then their very last child was Clyde Davis. So we knew at this point that your father was amongst these 5 boys. It was just a question now of which one actually was it. So we had to investigate each one of them. So just to double confirm my research, I did go to the 1950 U.S. Census and get a list of all of their children off of the census as well, just to confirm that what I was seeing in the family photos matched the official record. So what you're seeing here at the top is the actual 1950 U.S. Census with the family listed on it. You see Howard, Kenneth, Lynn, and Clyde on the list. So those were their 5 sons. So now it's just kind of a game of process of elimination. We've got to figure out who your father was. So I'll go through how we kind of went through that elimination process next here. So the first one that we were able to easily eliminate was Lynn, who unfortunately died at the age of 21. So he died even 5 years before you were even born. So we can definitely eliminate him as a candidate father.
2022 long.
Yeah, he was really young when he died. The next 2 children that we can safely eliminate were Garrett and Howard. So in 1971, when you were born, they were both living in rural Utah in the middle of long-lasting marriages. Garrett had been married for 14 years already and had 6 children. And Howard had been married for 8 years and had at least 3 children. And they were just living in the rural parts of America and had never been in the military, had never been to the Philippines, nothing like that. So we can safely eliminate them as candidate fathers for you. So that just left us with 2 candidates, Kenneth and Clyde. So we then researched both of them. We can see on Kenneth's gravestone here that it says he was in the U.S. Navy. So that was one of our first clues. We might be on the right trail here. The abbreviation ENCSS, which is in very small print on his gravestone, means that he worked in the engine room of a submarine. And then we also took a closer look at Clyde, the other son, and in the obituary of his brother Lynn, it mentions that Clyde was also away in the Navy. So we weren't able to, at this point anyway, eliminate anybody because they were both in the Navy. And so at this point, we pretty much had reached the end of the paper trail. So the next step was to reach out to the family and see what they could tell us, if they could tell us anything more. So we were able to then reach your cousin, Lori. She was able to reach out to your uncle Clyde, who is still alive. And he indicated that he had left the Navy in 1970 and had never been to the Philippines himself. So that left us with just Kenneth, who passed away in 2022. And they did confirm that Kenneth had been in the Philippines in the 1970s. So by process of elimination, we've been able to arrive at who your father was. And then I wanted to take a little bit more look at his service. So I did find this in the Honolulu Advertiser newspaper in December of 1970, and it mentions your father, Kenneth Davis, was on the U.S.S. Sailfish. So I took a look at the U.S.S. Sailfish, and it turns out that's a submarine. It was in Pearl Harbor, and it departed for its West Pacific deployment on February 8th of 1971. So it would have arrived in the Philippines maybe about 10 days later, somewhere around mid-February, which happens to be 9 months before you were born. So we think that's probably when he arrived. And he did, after that, the submarine then continued on to Japan in May, and then it went to Mindanao in July, and then Brisbane, Australia in August, before it returned to Pearl Harbor in August. So that's what his tour of duties looked like, we believe. So these are some of the pictures of your father that we've been able to put together. So the one on the very far left is his childhood picture with his mom. That was taken about 1946. The next one is a yearbook photo that was taken at the age of 16 in Arizona in 1960. The middle one there is the only photo I found of him from the 1970s. So that's not too long after, probably shortly after he returned from the Navy. And then we've got two kind of later in life pictures, one that was taken in 2010 at a family gathering, and then one that was taken in 2021 at your grandmother's funeral. The next picture, I don't know if they've showed you this one or not, but I put side-by-side pictures of you and your father just so you can kind of see how closely related you really do look.
Definitely, it's the same face.
Yeah.
Aura itself. When I was young,
How old are you
Same.
this one?
I think I'm 18.
18.
Yeah.
And your father
Yeah,
this
he was
time is
16, so pretty close.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Next,
Sir Caleb.
yep, you're welcome here. And next, we'll show you your uncles. So you have Garrett Miles Davis, Howard Frank Davis, and Clyde Davis. Those are your three surviving uncles, or ones that survived to adulthood. And there's another kind of family photo of the group of four, Kenneth, Clyde, Garrett, and Howard. The next photo I'll show you is kind of an interesting one, I thought. So that is your Uncle Garrett, the little baby, and all of his maternal ancestors back all the way 4 more generations back. So his mom, his grandmother, his great-grandmother, and his great-great-grandmother. Yeah, in fact, the oldest woman there, she was born in 1857. So we're getting all the women in your family all the way back to the 1850s in one photograph here. So that was a pretty interesting photo there. Pretty amazing to have something like this. So this is going back 5 generations, photographs of all of your ancestors back well into the 1800s on each one of your lines.
My God. So amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so shocked.
It's amazing there's so many photographs of that far back.
They're all my uncles.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Relatives.
In fact, if you look at the very top row, those are almost all of your immigrant ancestors to America. So those are the ones that came over from Europe to the United States from the various places like Ireland, Wales, England. A set of them was from the Channel Islands. So those are mostly your immigrants. The second generation after that is the ones that came to Utah in the 1850s on the covered wagons. And then the next one down is your great-grandparents that we introduced you to earlier, and then your grandparents, and then your father. So that's kind of how all of your American history there.
Amazing. You're so amazing.
It's all Yeah, thank you. I'll actually put this together and send it over to you so you have a copy of it as well.
Thank you so
so that you
much.
can kind of have it for a reference purpose.
Thank you.
But that's all I really have for you. So thank you very much for giving
Thank
me
you,
the opportunity to
Caleb.
discover your family.
I'm so thankful, and I'm also praying and that you will also help a lot more here who are looking for their parents, long lost
Yep.
parents.
Actually, I've found 3 more already. So you're the first one of 4 that I've just recently discovered. So hopefully I get to do this 3 more times.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, you just don't know how lucky am I and thankful to God what you did at Leah Blair to me. I am. It seems that that I am. There's a closure.
Yeah.
A complete me. I mean, no, he's not around, but this searching that you made Leah Blair with completed my life so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And it's a new beginning too. So you've got a lot of
You've got-
family that's interested to meet you. So
There's a lot.
very
There's
nice.
a lot.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
50 odd
You're very
great
welcome.
grandchildren in the family, so they're a big family, and all of the sisters.
Really?
The 5 sisters, your first cousins, they're all really excited to speak to you
Really?
through Facebook. All of the ones that have sent you video messages, they're very welcoming you into their family, and you'll be chatting to them on Facebook tomorrow, I'm sure.
Wow.
So, from
Did you give my Facebook?
not yet, of course not yet, but I'm sure that you'll want to give your Facebook, and then you can add them as friends. And
Will they are ready to accept me?
yeah, they said that on their video messages.
the
Welcome,
video.
welcome to all of these girls here.
Uh-huh.
All of they're all sisters. They're your first cousins, so
I have a family now.
their father and your
Yep.
father were brothers.
Yeah. So much.
Yeah, and we've talked to them. They're very excited to meet you. So
Thank you
I
so
think he'll be
much.
very happy to. Yep.
There's no word anymore that I could say, but thank you and God bless you more for all of this, and may you increase more. Mabuhay ang Leah Blair. Mabuhay ang genealogist ni Caleb.
Caleb, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
help, Caleb.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yep,
getting up
thank you.
early at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No problem.
Thank you so much, and we'll speak to you again soon with another case.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
I've got
Thanks,
one.
Caleb.
Thank you.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.
See you on the next one.
Bye. Yep.